Today we're talking about one of the biggest questions in the world. Why is Africa still so poor, even though it's rich in land, people, and natural resources? Africa is the second largest continent on Earth. It has more than 50 countries. It has gold, oil, diamonds, farmland, sunlight, and one of the youngest populations in the world. And yet a large number of people living in extreme poverty today live in Africa. That doesn't mean Africans are lazy. It doesn't mean Africa is bad at money. And it definitely doesn't mean this problem has one simple cause. In fact, asking why is Africa poor is risky, because Africa isn't one country. It's dozens of countries with different cultures, governments, and histories. But when researchers look at global poverty patterns, they notice something important. Many African countries face similar obstacles, even when they are far apart. So instead of blaming individuals or single governments, economists started asking a deeper question. Are there big shared problems that made development harder across much of the continent? And if so, can those problems be fixed? To answer that, we need to talk about three big ideas: geography, institutions, and history. Let's start with geography. Where a country is located matters more than people like to admit. Think of the world like a giant board game. Some places start with easier conditions. Others start on hard mode. Thousands of years ago, early civilizations needed a few basic things to grow: good soil, reliable water, animals that could be farmed, and easy ways to trade with neighbors. Parts of Africa had some of these things, but many regions didn't. Large areas were extremely hot. Rainfall was unpredictable, soil often lost nutrients quickly, and dangerous diseases made it hard for people to live close together for long periods. In many regions, farming was risky. If you planted crops and the rain failed, you starved, so people survived by moving, hunting, and gathering instead. That worked for survival, but it made it harder to build large cities, roads, and shared systems. Another problem was isolation. The Sahara Desert is massive. For most of human history, it acted like a giant wall. Ideas, inventions, and trade moved easily across Europe and Asia. But much of Africa, especially south of the Sahara, was cut off from those early trade networks. Even today, many African countries don't have easy access to the ocean. That makes trade expensive. If it costs more to move goods, businesses struggle to grow. And when businesses don't grow, jobs don't either. So geography made development harder. But geography alone doesn't explain everything, because there are countries with terrible geography that still became rich. That's where institutions come in. Institutions are the rules of the game. They include things like laws, property rights, courts, tax systems, and how leaders are chosen. Good institutions reward people for working, saving, and building things. Bad institutions take from people, punish success, and protect those in power. In many parts of Africa, early political systems were very centralized. Kings or chiefs had enormous power. There were few limits on what they could take or demand. So imagine you're a farmer. If you grow extra food, a ruler might take it. If you build a cart, it might be seized. If you trade and succeed, you might attract danger. In that kind of system, the safest choice is to stay small and invisible. Over time, this discouraged trade, innovation, and cooperation between groups. This also helps explain something that confused early researchers. Some technologies, like the wheel or carts, were known but not widely used. Not because people were ignorant, but because using them made you visible, and visibility was risky. If building something meant losing it, why build it at all? Then history made things much worse. The Atlantic slave trade ripped millions of people out of Africa. This destroyed families, communities, and trust between groups. Some local rulers participated, trading people for weapons and goods. That increased violence and instability, and rewarded the most brutal leaders. Later came colonialism. European powers carved Africa into borders that made sense on maps, not on the ground. Different ethnic groups were forced into the same countries. Others were split apart. Colonial governments were not built to help people grow businesses or improve life. They were built to extract resources as cheaply as possible. Railways went from mines to ports, not between cities. Schools were limited. Local leadership systems were weakened or destroyed. When colonial powers left, they took expertise and infrastructure with them. New countries were suddenly responsible for running governments, courts, and economies, without training or trust. That created power struggles. And in many places, strongmen took over systems designed for control, not cooperation. This damaged Africa's reputation globally. Investors fear instability. Companies fear corruption. Even good projects struggle to get funding because the risk is seen as too high. That becomes a trap. No investment means no growth. No growth means more instability. And the cycle repeats. But here's the important part. This is not permanent. There are African countries that are improving. Botswana is one example. It started poor. It had diamonds. It had difficult geography. But it built rules that protected people instead of exploiting them. It invested in education. It respected property rights. It limited corruption. And over time, it grew. Not overnight. Not perfectly, but steadily. And history shows us something hopeful. Most places on Earth were poor for most of human history. Europe was poor for centuries. Asia was poor just decades ago. Economic success tends to build on itself. Once a country gets the rules right, growth becomes easier. Africa's story is still being written. There are young populations, expanding education, new technology, and growing connections to the world. The challenges are real, but so is the potential. And understanding why Africa struggled is not about blame. It's about learning how growth actually happens, so the same mistakes don't keep repeating. I'll see you in the next video.